My name is Peter John Baptiste. I head up communications for the Cleveland Browns and the Haslam Sports Group. It is a really exciting day for our organization, really exciting time for our organization. In about 48 hours, this building, Cleveland Brown Stadium, will be live because it's kickoff. It's kickoff weekend for us. We're really excited about that as an organization. We love what we do on Sundays, but as an organization, we're a lot more than just what we do on Sundays. We like to think of ourselves as keepers of a great community asset in the Cleveland Browns. And part of our responsibility, as I said, goes well beyond just what we do on the field. We want to have a great impact off the field. We talk about three things in our organization: winning, taking great care of our fans, and giving back to the community. And one of the things in the community that's really important to us is education. So today, our students are going to learn a little bit about Cleveland's rich history when it comes to athlete activism. Jim Brown, our greatest player of all time, as many of you know, recently, unfortunately, passed away. We got some great celebrations. We've had some great celebrations for him. We're going to celebrate him today. We're also going to celebrate him on Sunday. But what today is really about is the Cleveland Restoration Society placing a marker in front of our stadium to honor Cleveland's Ali Summit. We got a great group of individuals here today. They're going to explain to you more about that day and that important time in Cleveland history. I can't say anything about the Reverend's cell phone going off. But appreciate you guys coming out. We're going to have some great discussions about the summit, about Jim Brown. You're going to hear from Mayor Bibb. You're going to hear from two Browns players in Greg Newsome and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who believe in athlete activism and get out and involved in the community. You're also going to hear from John Wooten. You're going to learn about a picture that was taken during the Cleveland Summit. John Wooten was in that picture, and he's going to share a little bit about Jim Brown, a little bit about our experiences, the experiences of that day. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to, well, we're going to start with the video, actually. We're going to start with video. Let's roll this video so you guys can understand a little bit about the impact Jim Brown made in Cleveland and with the Browns.
There's no stopping Jim Brown on an effort like this. He goes over the top and into the end zone for his 5th touchdown of the day.
Have you ever seen an image of strength? Like this. A picture of power. Like this. A portrait of courage. Like this. Ask yourself these questions, because the answers tell you how superhuman this man really was. Ask yourself these questions, because his whole life, that's what Jim Brown was about.
We cannot make exception to these laws just because a person happens to be black or white.
Forcing the world to ask why things were the way they were, and how the rest of us could force change.
This is Jim Brown.
We got power. You ain't see nobody knocking back. Look at the film. You don't see nobody knocking
Most
back.
devastating ball carrier in the history of football.
He was born in the South, St. Simon's Island off the coast of Georgia in 1936, and raised in the North, a small town on Long Island, where his legend as an athlete began. Any sport Jim Brown played, he dominated. From football to basketball, to track to lacrosse. Even though there's little video of him playing that last one, there were those who said there's never been a better lacrosse player who walked the earth. But football was the game that lifted him to stardom. First at Syracuse University, where he was an All-American, and then in Cleveland with the Browns. His NFL career began in 1957, and he played in the league for 9 years, absolutely dominating the sport and rewriting the record book, setting a new standard for how a running back could rule the game with a combination of speed, force, and will. But Jim Brown was so much more than arguably the greatest football player of all time. That was clear when he retired before he turned 30. to become a new kind of pioneer. A black action star in the movies. A Hollywood leading man who refused to be cornered into how the world cast him. And that was just the start of the legacy he built outside the football field. During the Civil Rights Movement, he was front and center in the fight to earn blacks economic opportunities. And in 1967, he organized the famed Cleveland Summit to support Muhammad Ali and his refusal to serve in Vietnam. Then, in the 1980s, he founded the AmeriCAN program to provide outreach to gang members and kids in juvenile detention facilities, to give them education, hope, and a chance when no one else would.
We have changed many, many lives, and as I stand here right now, our people can carry out the work. They don't need me, and when I leave here, they can still carry out the work, and they don't need me.
Even if he sometimes looked like Superman, Jim Brown wasn't a perfect man, but he was one of the most important figures ever to make a mark on the landscape of sports and society. He changed the game of football with his play. He redefined the limits of what a black man could be in America, through his strength, his power, and his courage. He never stopped looking for ways to make the country better. Those of us who followed in his footsteps. Rest in power, Jim Brown. We'll keep doing the work in your name.
Powerful video and a legacy at the Cleveland Browns we try to honor every day. I'm now going to turn it over to James Robenthal, who is a local historian that's going to tell you about the Cleveland Civil Rights Trail.
I need my clicker for this. Got one coming? Okay, good afternoon. Boy, that wasn't very good. Good afternoon. That's great. So I wrote this book. I've been given 5 minutes, so we're going to run through some slides. I want you to see some real history here. This book is named after Malcolm X's most important speech of his career, called The Ballad or the Bullet. And it was given first here in Cleveland at Corey Methodist Church. But I want to tell you about the two things that came together in this summit. One is the anti-war movement, and the other is the civil rights movement. And then they merged into this summit with this background. So start with Dr. King. In 1966, he went to Chicago to try to integrate housing and so forth. This is a fabulous photograph of him in 1966. Up in the left corner is Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young. And so he went there and he tried to integrate schools and neighborhoods. He ran into huge pushback on that. It was almost killed in a park in Chicago. So wounded but not giving up, he went off and went to Jamaica, his favorite place, for almost 5 weeks to recover from all of this and to think about, where do I go from here? He had been really successful in the South. Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65, Selma, Birmingham, but he was failing in the North. It wasn't working. So he thought, what do I do? So he thought of two things, and these come together in the summit. One, I'm going to denounce the Vietnam War finally as immoral. And secondly, I'm going to try to accomplish black power. We've got the right to vote. Now we need to exercise it, and we need to find people who can win in northern cities. The one guy he identified is a guy named Carl Stokes here in Cleveland. So he goes on to denounce the war. In this speech, this is in New York City, Riverside Church, and he got up and said, I can no longer support the war. So this is April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year before he was assassinated in Memphis, same day. 3 weeks later, he comes to Cleveland, Ohio. And people don't talk about this enough. Cleveland was ground zero for the civil rights movement. He comes and he speaks, that's Glenville High School. Him speaking to Glenville High School. If you want to listen to a great speech, it's online. It's his somebodyness speech. I'm a somebody. or Rise Up speech. It's about a half an hour. It's really wonderful. It's wonderfully done. That's the speech that he's given. But he's here and he says to the students, be a committee of one, go home, get your parents registered. We're going to elect Carl Stokes. He's the first African-American mayor, he will be, in the United States. So this was his big mission in the last year of his life, was Cleveland, Ohio. This is...
United States, we feel that over the last few years through our nonviolent struggle, we have achieved moral power and we have literally subpoenaed large segments of the nation to appear before the judgment seat of morality on the question of civil rights. Now it is necessary to transform this moral power into political power so that we can bring about the necessary political reforms that will solve the problems that we face.
Okay, that's April 1967. That was Hopkins Airport, and he's coming here. You heard the message. Now we're going to convert our voting power into political power. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, this happens. So both of these strands will come together. The anti-war movement, Ali says he's not going to join the Army. Jim Brown brings him here with all these other athletes to support him in what he believes is the right thing for him to do. And they have an hours-long meeting with him, which you'll hear about. But you'll notice that in this photograph, that's another great one, there's in this background, and people never talk about that, that's Carl Stokes, who is about to announce to run for mayor. So the anti-Vietnam War and the political power are both coming together in this, and they will move forward with Carl Stokes running for mayor, becoming the first African-American mayor of a major U.S. city, very much the Barack Obama of his day here. He was very well spoken. He was amazingly charismatic. He was a lawyer, and he won, and it was a big deal. Martin Luther King was here the day that he was elected. This is a picture of him the day before he's elected, shaking hands with a guy named Fred Ahmed Evans, who's a black nationalist at the time, who I wrote my book about. And then Stokes wins, and it's celebrated around the country. This is the cover of Time magazine. So what I want to tell you is this summit is more than just about Ali. It's really about these two things, the anti-war movement and the Black Power movement, and Cleveland was central to both of them. And these athletes who came together, including John Wooten, who's here today, who called all these people to come. These are the greatest athletes of all time coming together to support Ali. And it's here in your hometown in Cleveland. And so it's really important for you to know. So that's my quick tour of the background. Now I think Mayor Bibb is going to head up a panel.
Jim, thank you very much for that fascinating and powerful history lesson. Great context as we set the stage for this discussion. I'm Ted Tai Wong. I'm Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel for Haslam Sports Group and the Cleveland Browns. And it's a real honor today to introduce Mayor Justin M. Bibb on this special day. As most of you know, Mayor Bibb is the 58th mayor of Cleveland and was born and raised on Cleveland's southeast side in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. Over the past 15 years, Mayor Bibb has worked in government, business, and the nonprofit sector. He started his career in public service working for President Obama when he was in the U.S. Senate, and later at Cuyahoga County as a special assistant, advising on education and economic development policies. He then led the Global Cities practice at global research firm Gallup, served as vice president at KeyBank, and most recently was chief strategy officer at Urbanova, a startup focused on improving cities. Mayor Bibb is a proud American University alum with an undergraduate degree in urban studies. He also studied at the London School of Economics and is a graduate of Case, where he earned both his MBA and his law degree. Since taking office, Mayor Bibb has worked tirelessly to bring Cleveland back onto the national conversation and to push our city forward for everyone, with a particular focus on public safety, neighborhood investment, and modernizing City Hall. More close to home for us at the Browns, Mayor Bibb has been a great partner in our social justice work and a real leader and collaborator in his efforts to fix the North Coast lakefront once and for all and provide equitable access to this great asset for everyone. Our mayor is passionate about all things social justice and equity, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce him to moderate this special panel.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this conversation this afternoon. And as a point of mayoral privilege, it's so important that we pay respect and give flowers to two important people that are here this afternoon. First, Reverend Cavanis. Please stand up, Reverend Cavanis. Reverend Cavanis is a civil rights giant, not just in Cleveland, but across the nation. He marched with Dr. King, organized with Dr. King, and has always been at the consciousness of this great city. Thanks for being here, Reverend Cavanis. We truly appreciate you. In the prior presentation, we heard a lot about Carl B. Stokes, the first black mayor of a major American city. And I'm so humbled to be the youngest black mayor in our city's history, coming after Carl B. Stokes. But you don't get elected without a great campaign manager. And we have the wife of Arnold Pinckney in the room. Betty Pinckney, please stand. My other mother, by the way. Arnold Pinckney, her husband, is a scion of not just Cleveland politics, but American politics. Not only did Arnold help elect Carl B. Stokes and manage his re-election campaign, but Arnold was the campaign manager for Jesse Jackson when he ran for president. And you don't get a Barack Obama without Jesse Jackson. And you don't get a Barack Obama or Jesse Jackson without Carl B. Stokes. And Arnold Pinckney, a son of Cleveland, is a part of that story. So for the young people here this afternoon, know that greatness is within you because you come from this great city. All right? So before we begin the conversation, I want to have our panelists take the mic and quickly introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Branson.
It's working? There we go. Hi, I'm Branson Wright. I worked for the Plain Dealer for about 20 years. Since then, I've become a filmmaker. I co-produced Believe Land on ESPN and Women of Troy on HBO, and have an upcoming film, King of the Block, that'll be on Apple TV next month.
Greetings to everybody. My name is Jeremiah Owusu-Koromora, linebacker with the Cleveland Browns. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad to see everyone, specifically the youths. You know, y'all could be doing anything with y'all Friday evening, so it's a pleasure to see y'all.
How y'all doing? I'm Greg Newsom II, cornerback for the Cleveland Browns. I attended Northwestern University, and like he said, man, it was just great to see the youth. I remember being in your seats, and I believe this is just a great opportunity, and it's a blessing to have y'all here.
I'm John Wooden. As you can see, I'm the oldest person up here. But Mayor Bibb stole my stuff from Betty Pinckney. But, you know, because I was going to tell exactly how the role her husband has played in all of this. But I want to also introduce Dean Buchanan. Stand up for us, Dean. Dean played a great role when you hear NIEU, Negro Industrial Economic Union, when you hear the Black Economic Union. Dean Buchanan was one of the real key players in all of the things that we did. Coming out of Princeton, that tells you he knows a little something. But it was just outstanding. Wilma Cooks, Dean Buchanan, Leon Hogg. And then, of course, we want to talk about our good friend Ernie Green is here, one of the great players that played for us, one of the most unselfish players ever. And so that I don't have to sleep on the floor tonight, my wife, Juanita, and Ernie Green's wife. But this is a great moment for us to talk about where we're going as it relates to Cleveland. One of the reasons why Carl Stokes was in that picture with the Ali Summit. He was the legal counsel for the NIEU. This is the way we worked in Cleveland back in those days. We went into the belly of the beast, as you young people know, and we gave you hope because we know it's all about education and economics. And that's why we're here to talk and celebrate Jim Brown. Go ahead.
John, let's start with you. Paint the picture for us of that day. What was going on in your mind? Give us the feeling, the context of the beginning of that day of the Ali Summit.
Well, what had happened, but before I say that, I just want you to know how much we have followed you, studied you. I live in Dallas, Texas, but we have stayed right early on from and we're just so proud of you because you represent everything that we believe that this country has to offer if we get the education and the economic development that we need. But let me just go back and talk about how all of this come about. Jim had said to me earlier, Woods, we're not going to march, we're not going to sit in, but we got to be involved. We got to be involved in this movement. We cannot stand on the sidelines. We got to be involved. And that's when we put together the NIEU, Negro Industrial Economic Union. Back then, it was accepted to say Negro as opposed to black. And definitely never the N-word do we use in references at all. But so when we had played a game down in Miami, Florida, against Detroit called the Run-Up Bowl. That's the year that Cassius Clay was going to fight Sonny Liston 64 for the championship, the heavyweight championship. We were all hanging out, the Detroit Lion players, the Cleveland Brown players, Ali and his camp, Sonny Liston, all of us are hanging out at a place similar to what Carnegie, those of you that know, that are old enough, know what Carnegie Hotel is about. The Sir John Hotel was the same thing. Doctors, black lawyers, judges, social workers, school teachers, principals, everybody's hanging out at the Sir John because of the segregation that existed there in Florida, in Miami, Florida. And that created a relationship between Jim and young Cassius Clay at that time. And that relationship grew as we moved to the Negro Industrial Economic Union. All of these men that you see in that picture, Bobby Mitchell, Willie Davis, the reason why the young Lou Alcindor was in that picture, Jim and Cassius are both living out on the West Coast. They loved Lou Alcindor at that time. And they knew that he could become what we see today. I tell my wife, when you see the commercials and him speaking out and being what he's about, this is exactly what Jim and Cassius had in mind. That's why he's at this meeting. So when Jim called that Thursday morning and said to me, Jim's in California, Herbert Muhammad just called and said that the champ didn't step forward at the induction center in Houston. He thinks the champ is in trouble. Call the guys. We got to support him. The great thing about this, There's not one single guy that I called that you see in that picture said to me, hey, Woot, this might be a tough road for us to happen. Or who's gonna pay for this? I said, you have a room reserved for Saturday evening at the Hilton Hotel on 9th and Euclid at that time. I don't know if that exists anymore.
I don't think so.
But every single one of those guys were there. The champ came in, and he never varied from what he had to say. I am an ordained minister of the Black Islam. I'm a black minister. I'm a conscientious objector. And I don't want to be in any organization that kills people. And everybody had their say that day, that evening, Saturday evening. And when it came time to vote, they talked to him about special service. He never wavered one single second. And at the end of the night, we said, we'll support you. We'll stand with you. They had already taken away his championship and his passport. And there's no question in my mind and everybody else's mind, they were intending to put him in jail as a draft dodger at that time. But we all know how that story ended. Went on to become a great champion, but more so, a great person working with young people. And that's why you guys are so important to us as we go forward.
That's amazing. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Greg, I want to start with you to get the player's perspective. What does it mean to be a part of this amazing legacy as a member of the Cleveland Browns, where you have an icon like Jim Brown, who's really set the gold standard of being not only a great athlete, but a great activist?
Man, starting off, it's a blessing. You know, something that I wanted to do when I got drafted to whatever team I got drafted to was to, you know, get myself in the community. And what better way to have a prime example of a guy who has set the bar somewhere I'm trying to get to, but it's obviously very hard to reach where he got to. But it's definitely a blessing. You know, I didn't know all this stuff about Cleveland until I got here, and I'm still learning a lot, but it's definitely a blessing to be a part of this organization. And just shout out Jim Brown, man. Rest in peace, rest in power. He did a great job, and, you know, I'm just going to continue to try to do my part to try to impact you guys, because that's where it starts. You guys have so much power that you don't understand. And, you know, just a little quick history about me. I was born in the inner city of Chicago. My parents didn't want me to go to school out there because obviously you guys know we don't have the same resources as certain, you know, places, which is a problem. And, you know, I was able to go out to the suburbs and get my education. So I know not everyone has that opportunity. And so my goal and my job now is to try to impact you guys as much, because, you know, black is power. I mean, you guys have so much power. I mean, all you guys got to do, like they said, education is key. That's why I attended Northwestern University, just because I knew, you know, having an education is the most important part. But my job is just to empower you guys, be a light for you guys, and just show my face. And that is not that hard to get to where I'm at. And not just football-wise, just being a man, being an educated man in the U.S. So, yeah.
That's great. Black is power. I love that. Jeremiah?
Same question? Well, you know, it's a great honor, I would say, to be a part of this organization specifically, you know, with Jim Brown and all that he does, or all that he has done for the community, and really understanding the problems and the issues, and doing a good evaluation and an audit of those things that were the issues. I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, or, you know, some people say, you know, Bad News, Newport News, Virginia, 757 area. where Allen Iverson grew up, where Mike Tomlin grew up. We had a lot of people in the 757 grow up and gave back to the community, and I thought it was important, especially, it's one thing to, say to, a young fella to, get off the streets, stop selling drugs. It's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to, maybe create an alternative for them to do. And I think those guys definitely represented that, into which I wanted to become. So coming here at the Cleveland Browns, seeing Jim Brown and all that he has done is very important. And it's almost a duty and a responsibility for us as athletes to step into that role of leadership, not only amongst the team, but also in the community. So
That's great. Thanks so much. Branson, a while back, the famous Fox News commentator, Laura Ingraham, called out the GOAT, LeBron James, after we had lost so many black men to police misconduct in this nation, and told him to shut up and dribble. Shut up and dribble. And we continue to see this attack on athletes, but in particularly black athletes who try to use their platform to advance their political power. Can you talk about that tension that we've seen in this climate, and what are you seeing from an athlete's perspective in terms of them disrupting that narrative?
Well, first of all, there's always been this negative thing toward athletes or anybody that speak up. Now, if I'm correct, isn't an athlete an American citizen?
That's right.
And as an American citizen, aren't you trying to make this better for Americans? So whenever I hear that, just shut up and dribble, and as LeBron said, he is more than an athlete, and which is right. But let's not get it twisted. Athletes being active, as far as socially active, is nothing new. They've been doing this since Paul Robeson, going back to the 40s and 50s. And I remember talking to Jim Brown, and he talked about Paul Robeson was one of the guys he looked up to and who he admired. And then we go Harry Edwards in the 60s. And recently, we know about the football players in Missouri. And back in the 90s, the football players in North Carolina, they protested on campus. So it's nothing new for athletes to stand up. I mean, that's just part of the culture, and that's what we've all been doing.
For Branson, I want to give Branson this one more question, put you back on the hot seat, brother.
Okay, sorry.
And that's okay.
That's good.
When you think about the legacy of Jim Brown, give us your viewpoint on what that legacy means for the future of Cleveland.
Wow, it's a great question. Well, personally, Jim was a hero of mine. And when I got the opportunity to meet him here after my parents, I didn't get to see him live on television, but my parents would tell me about him, get to look at the films, and then meeting him, and he's just a remarkable man. And he was just, again, just more than just about, being an athlete. And I think what Jim tried to impose on the world is about respecting him and everyone as a man and a woman, to respect them as an American. And, till the day he died, that's what he tried to do to improve things in this world. So I'll never forget that. And I think when we look at the summit and what we're here doing today, I think that'll carry on Jim's legacy.
You want to put him back in the hot seat?
No, it's you now, brother. It's you.
Yeah, no, I obviously think it's important to, take a good look at all that Jim Brown has done for the community, for the nation, and to be able to not, swipe it away or ignore it, but also understand the profoundness of that history, and to be able to replicate it, to be able to carry on the work, as Jim Brown said himself in the video that we just watched recently. But to understand that for a place to develop as a community, it starts in the family, right? Community is made up of many families, and to start within, it's not somewhere where we may say, well, I want to get out in the community, so let me just, go outside and try to find, activity to do, but also to understand that Let me take an audit of my own family. What are the issues within my family? What are the issues within, my brother or my sister or my mother or my father? How can I be a service to them first? And ultimately, from that service, then it can better the community. But I think it should start from within on towards out. So,
Greg?
Yeah, just to kind of echo what he said. Like he said, I mean, Jim Brown unfortunately has passed away. And in order to continue to rise up, now you need new leaders to form. So like JOK said as well, it's just a duty for guys like us and guys like us on the summit to continue his legacy. And, I feel like just like he said, getting in community, but actually finding a reason, not just coming out and showing my face, but trying to find alternatives and find ways that I can really help you guys. Me just being up here or just showing my face every once in a while, I don't feel like that's helping enough. So just getting around you guys, interacting with you guys a lot more. And I think once again, it's so important that you guys are here because as you can see, no offense to everybody here, people are getting older. And you guys are gonna one day have to carry this torch. And you guys are from Cleveland, this is your place. So, you know what I'm saying? You guys gotta find a way to, carry the torch after people keep passing it. So I feel like our objective now is to continue the legacy of Jim Brown.
Sorry, Mayor, I wanted to add something.
Sound
I wish the photo was up there, but it's a great example, and talking to the students, of what you all can do as far as organizing. I mean, the summit wasn't just for athletes. The summit could be for anybody. I mean, students can organize. You can make changes in your school. Teachers can organize and make changes. Your community can organize and make changes. That whole example of those men getting together, I mean, that's for everybody. It just wasn't for Ali. It could be an Ali in your community that you can get together for. And that's what that represents to me.
That's right. Powerful message. Thanks, Branson. John?
I think that Cleveland is a very unique place. You go back and know what football means in this community, what it means in the nation, what it means in the world. Football is the sport of the U.S. And what we have here, the NFL, all of that came about. Let me give you just a little bit of history. Early on in the National Football League, from 1920 to 1933, blacks played in the NFL. And then in 1933, under George Halas of the Bears, George Preston Marshall of the Redskins, blacks were eliminated from playing simply because they were taking the jobs away from the white players. So from 21 to 33, there were no blacks in the NFL. 33 on in to 46, no blacks. They wanted Paul Brown, who had been a very successful high school coach at Massillon, Ohio, and at Ohio State. He had a team there in New York, and they wanted that team to come to the NFL. But Paul would not agree to do it if you couldn't bring the players that he wanted. And finally in 1946, the National Football League opened up again. And that's when the New York team became the Cleveland Browns. The team that was here, called the Cleveland Rams, went to LA And now, of course, you know the LA Rams. But think about this. 1946, there were two young black players on the Cleveland Browns, Marion Motley and Bill Willis. Today, their names are in the circle that has Hall of Famers. This is what Cleveland has been. And this is the legacy that we try to have here. That's why it is so important that we reach out, go into the communities, and give of yourself. Because it's all about, and we say education, we're not talking about you got to go to college, you got to do this and that. We're talking about it being educated, understanding the role that you want to play in life, and be able to do it. That's why Cleveland is so important to us. That's what it meant to us then as players, and that's what it means today to us. That's why the Cleveland Browns register so strongly in our heart.
As we close out our panel on this topic of legacy, and we'll start with you and we'll ask the rest of our panelists. Throughout your life, I'm sure all of you have many life lessons. What's one life lesson you want to give to the young people here in this room this afternoon?
I want to tell the young people everywhere, not just in this room, what my mom said to me when I was 13, 14 years old. There's nobody in this world that's better than you are. And as quickly as she said that, she said, and you're not better than anybody else. You treat everybody with respect and dignity. That's what she said to me then. I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. But every day of my life I live now, I understand it. Don't ever think anyone is better than you are. But you're not better than anyone else. And if you live that kind of life, I can truly say I have been blessed. I come from a single family home with 6, I'm the youngest of 6. The only one of us that went to college. And I had a sister that was so smart until it mystifies me today, yet she had no chance to go to college. But I did get that chance. And that is why I live the life that I live. Because I was given a chance through what? Sports. Got able to go to college, get an education, drafted by the Browns here in the 5th round, come in here to play, and I can truly say I've never really worked a day in my life. Because Jack Nicklaus says it best. If you're doing what you love to do, it's not work. And that's what we're saying to you. That's what the legacy that you have here in Cleveland. Carl Stokes, and I, as I said, the reason why he's in that picture is that he was our legal counsel. But we also campaigned for him. One of the things I was to do was to go pick up Dr. King and bring him in when he came into the city and drive him around. So we were tied into the civil rights movement in a way that was right inside. Jesse, Andy Young, all those guys, we were all friends. All I'm saying to you young people is this: work hard, prepare yourself. These guys will make sure that you get the opportunity that you should have, and I apologize for not being able to turn this phone off. But anyway, that's what we're gonna do. Go ahead.
Amen. He was just getting started, too. Greg.
The lesson, I would probably tell you guys, if there was just one lesson that I can give you guys, would just be never let anyone tell you can't do something. I feel like that's the biggest thing that my mom told me growing up is like, you can do whatever you put your mind to. Don't ever let anyone say you can't. And I mean, sometimes the going gets tough. Like, everything's not gonna come easy. It's challenging, but this is what I always remember when I'm going through a tough time. God has perfect time, and never too early, never too late. So that would probably be the biggest advice. Remove can't from your from your vocabulary. That should never be a thought in your head. If you want to, make it to the NFL or make it anywhere you can get there. You just got to work hard, and find your sole purpose in this world.
That's great.
That's good, Greg. I think my piece of advice would be to take education seriously. And this is something I think I would have had the opportunity to be a part of so that somebody could have told me the same thing. Not saying I didn't take education seriously, but I wish I would have taken it at a more intensive level to understand that from education brings solutions. And from that, we see a better community. So like when y'all are in school and when y'all are, choosing something to study, do it through the channel of wanting to solve an issue. You don't have to save the world before you save yourself, right? I think when you key in on the specific things in your community that may be an issue, whether that's, violence, in any way, respect of women, it could be, environmental sustainability issues, whatever that may be in your community. I think that you should key in on that one thing and make your life about solving that one thing. And through that, we'll see a better community. The elders are here wanting to have conversations with you guys. Not all of them, but, majority of the elders would love to have conversations with the youth. And we know from those conversations, we have, life. There's nothing that we can look at in here that didn't start with a conversation. And I think, from that word, even the scripture says from the word, in the beginning was the word and the word became flesh. So from that, I think that we should key in on having those conversations, seek wisdom, seek understanding, because, understanding is seeking you. So that'll be my advice. Take education seriously. Be intentional. Have a sense of urgency with your education. You don't always have to be, the cool guy in school, the class clown. I was. But nevertheless, I'm saying that you don't have to be that, right? To be able to get, cool or to be able to do something that you may want to do to help your family, to help your community, and ultimately to help your nation. So that's my piece of advice.
You say just one, Mayor? Just one?
Just one.
word? Well, I want to say that no one is alone. And what I mean by that is everyone that's had some success, no matter what level, they didn't do it by themselves. Somebody helped them. So whenever you're having some trouble and you want to talk to somebody, there's teachers, there's coaches, there's, my son talks to the school bus driver. And, he's someone he can talk to. So you're never alone. Always talk to somebody. And then when you get older and get more mature, then you pull somebody else up and talk to them.
That's great. Let's give our panelists a round of applause if we can. In closing, we heard a lot of amazing insight and wisdom today, and I would just say this. Dr. King has this great quote. He says, "The moral arc of the universe bends, and it's our responsibility to bend it towards justice every single day." And Jim Brown bent it a whole lot towards justice, but all of us have a role to play to bend it even more. And I think our young people are going to take that baton and do an even amazing more job than their ancestors. So congratulations, everybody, and let's enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks so much.